We can now bring in our French politics editor, Marc Perelman. Marc, good to see you. Now, we had that statement there from France about what it's willing to do when it comes to playing negotiator, if you will, on Iran's nuclear program. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, clearly, many people thought this was essentially wishful thinking from the Europeans, who were essentially left watching what was happening between Israel and Iran, with clearly the front seat being for the United States. And Europe's voice wasn't heard. What has changed since this morning, since the statement, is that the Iranian foreign minister has said he would meet with several European ministers tomorrow, Friday, in Geneva. This, if it happens, let's wait what happens, because every hour brings us news in this war, this will be the first face-to-face meeting between an Iranian official and Western officials. So scheduled to attend are the so-called EU3, the three European countries that negotiated with Iran 10 years ago the nuclear agreement, which Donald Trump left back in 2018. That is France, Germany, the United Kingdom. Their respective foreign ministers are scheduled to attend, as well as the EU foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas. They're supposed to meet Abbas Araghchi, Iran's foreign minister. This would indeed show that the Europeans are not just talking, calling for restraint, calling for dialogue, calling for the war to end, but that they might be able to tell the Iranians what they should be doing. So the Europeans are hoping that they would, as such, get a seat at the table. The problem is it might be the wrong table, because obviously what is happening on the ground, we're seeing developments by the hour, might be much more important than the eventual talks tomorrow. Obviously, if the U.S. decides to participate in the war, that changes the equation, probably means there's no meeting tomorrow then.
And also, one never knows what the stated goal is, because the Israelis seem to think that it's going after Iran's missile and nuclear capabilities. But on the other hand, there has been this chatter of regime change, something that Paris says it wants no part of.
Absolutely. The French president reminded the world and other leaders, just upon leaving the G7 meeting in Canada a few days ago, that when the West tried regime change in Iraq and in Libya, well, the result was not a good one. And so this was sending a warning to Donald Trump, to Benjamin Netanyahu, that, okay, the stated goal is to essentially erase Iran's nuclear program, but there are clear hints and sometimes words used in Israel to say, basically, we need to wipe out the regime, wipe out the supreme leader Ali Khamenei, and replace him with whatever comes next. And so clearly the Europeans, what they're hoping to achieve by meeting the foreign minister tomorrow is to say, let's go back to the negotiating table, the one that the U.S. Was seated at with Iran just before the war started. We saw the U.S. Special Envoy, Steve Witkoff. He was scheduled to meet last Sunday. It sounds very far away.
Yeah, I know.
In Oman, 2 days before Israel decided to begin the war. So the Europeans are probably not hoping that they will negotiate by themselves with Iran without the U.S. and Israel being there. But they're hoping that they might have some positive message to bring back to Washington, maybe to Jerusalem as well. But clearly, their goal is to tell the Americans and Donald Trump, who's been sitting on the fence saying, yes, I want to talk. Yes, it's very late. Maybe I'll send the military in, but maybe I'll talk. Yeah. The Iranians want to come to the White House and so on, all these conflicting messages. The Europeans are probably hoping that they could tilt Donald Trump towards negotiations. But for this, they have to come up with some proposal from Iran, some firm proposal, and something that will show Iran is maybe ready to concede more than it was up until the war started. So that's obviously the very difficult part. But again, this could be totally pushed aside by the future developments on the ground if the war intensifies, if the U.S. jumps in. Now, everything would be up in the air.
We'll see what happens. Hopefully that meeting does, in fact, take place in Geneva tomorrow.
Thank you. Tomorrow.
Yeah. Marc, thank you.